Welcome to another video, everybody. I've been asked a lot, actually, or a bit, to talk about strings and what brand I use and what gauge I use. I'm gonna try to do a short video here and explain. Have a little water. And the gauge I use, and I think the gauge is an important thing. I use 40 to 95. And there's a couple of reasons for that, but mainly it's the tone. If you have a heavier gauge, there's a certain kind of bass, mud, or what do you call it, undertone that you can't get rid of. And especially when you play with your fingers, as I do. And there's actually something, when you combine the string gauge with the speakers, I think that's a correlation between them. And so if you have a heavy string gauge and play 15-inch speakers, there's mud there, bass tones that you can't get rid of, that they are there no matter what, how much bass you cut. But if you have a lighter string gauge, and as I use 10-inch speakers mostly, you can always use EQ to boost the bass if you want more bass. So if you have that option. And as playing in the studio, which is what I know best, there's three kinds mostly ways you can record, and it's either to plug in your bass directly to the console, or a DI, or amp, or mix it like you have a DI and an amp and mix that kind of signal. But still, with a heavier gauge, you get those really bassy tones. So that's one reason. And the other reason is the very low action I have. And that, I think it's better with a lighter gauge than a heavy gauge. And what kind of brand? I don't have a brand that I prefer, because I think almost every kind of string sounds the same. But if there is a string manufacturer out there that wants to sponsor me, I'll say your strings is the best. The tone lasts longer, you play better, the sustain is incredible. I'll say anything you want. So, but now there's not a certain kind of brand I use. So, for example, what I found in my box here now is Harley Benton's, and this is not on the expensive side of bass strings. But these are 95 to 40 to 95. And I think they're great. And I have Fender strings. These are 40 to hundreds, but still have them. Might use them someday. And I think the only big difference between the Harley Bentons and the Fenders is the price. And it might be 15 years ago, I bought strings from EBS. It's a Swedish amp manufacturer that had strings, and this is also 40 to 95. And I really like these strings because I bought a bunch of them. But the great thing with them was that when you put on the new strings, it wasn't that trebly the new strings can be. So EBS, that was a great brand for strings. But how about changing strings? And that is another thing. One mistake I did early in my career in the 90s when I started to record in the professional studio was that before my band was supposed to record, just before I tracked the bass, I changed my strings. And that was not a good idea because it went out of tune, and most of the times I was in a hurry. And it was that trebly sound. And back then, I had to say, the bass strings was expensive. What you can find in your local music store back then, there was not a lot of brands, and it was not cheap at all. So I didn't change string that often back then, but it's not, I did it more in the 90s than I do now. And how often do I change strings? Maybe, depending on how much I play, 6, 8, 10 months. And I like the sound of old strings just because I don't think that they lose the sustain and tone that much. But the thing you have to do is keep your hands clean. Before you start to play, wash your hands, don't have a snack during playing, and wipe your hands. Have a towel next to you when you play so you can wipe your hands. Have wipe the strings and clean the fretboard. And especially as a finger player with low action, I think there's no big difference between new and old strings. So I don't change that often. And last but not least, how do I boil bass strings? Of course, I've boiled a lot of bass strings, but I don't do it anymore because mostly I'm too lazy. But there's a certain sound in boiled bass strings. And if you like that, do it. If you want to change strings more often, do that too. But I'm just telling how I do it. And but you should find your own way. Try out different things and see what you like when you play. That's about strings. Hope you enjoyed it, everybody. I had surgery the other day on my arm, and it's painful at times, but hope I can go back to play. Maybe. No, I don't think this year, but maybe early next year I can try to play. Now that sounds like a long time, but that's how it is. So until the next video, take care, everybody. Bye.